sometimes. And I say, when the work is so smooth. Strap yourself upside down. Yes, you have now turned. Send it to yes, it's with us. No money can like that. No money can. Apologies for the latest start. Just trying to sort out some technical issues in the studio. You know, sometimes technology decides it wants to be the center of attention, like EPL match referees. But hey, I had to sort it out just so that things can go off without a hitch. Welcome to Freshly Pressed this Monday morning on Smooth 98.1, your love music, love live station, 33 minutes past 7 a.m. Yours truly is Ayokunmi Kikiriako, and it's great to have you join us this morning on another interactive session on Freshly Pressed. You know how we do. We get the stories, we get the analysis will follow, and also your thoughts and contributions. We look forward to hearing from you each and every single time. The WhatsApp number hasn't changed. It's 0809 444 0981. 0809 444 981. That is the WhatsApp number. Also on YouTube, we're streaming at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Apologies if I'm not in the frame, but just have to make do. As long as our voices are loud and clear, that is the most important thing. Joining me in the studio, I would say for the first time, because as you know, he's not in Lagos primarily, and it's been great to actually meet him in person for the first time. And having him in the studio, I feel like it's going to be a great Monday and a great week as well. AB Bozimo in the flesh. Good morning to you, AB.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning to all of the wonderful listeners out there. It's great to join you in person.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. A number of things for us to get through this morning.
Totally.
I mean, the Vanguard, Guardian, the Punch. So many different stories, so many different things that we need to talk about because these are the issues. We're going to start in the Vanguard, and we'll be talking about drugs, medication. Let me put it that way before people begin to think otherwise. Now, as the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, that's NAFDAC, intensifies its nationwide crackdown on fake drug markets, the Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria, HURIWA, has called on the agency, the Nigeria Police Force, Nigeria Customs Service, to root out corrupt operatives who allow the importation of fake and substandard drugs into the country. Now, this issue about fake and substandard drugs isn't new, but NAFDAC recently seems to be on a roll. Recently, they shut down a number of markets in different areas in Onitsha, in Lagos, in Aba as well, and not just one or two shops, thousands of these shops that have been found culpable in this particular issue. Now, the NAFDAC Director General, Professor Mojisola Adeye, has recently disclosed this. Now, you just begin to wonder, and this is a good thing, there's no doubt about it, but you just begin to wonder, I mean, what has led to NAFDAC deciding to wake up once again? This is me just being a conspiracy theorist. As someone said, you people are not working, we are going to reshuffle us. But at the end of the day, they are doing this for the benefit of the country. But looking at what she has said, I mean,
that's the first thing you said is very correct. It's a good thing because the scourge of fake medication cannot be overemphasized. Imagine you think you're trying to get better and you're taking something that you think should work and nothing good is coming of it. And before you know, people do pass on or suffer terrible consequences. In this story, we're learning that over 4,000 stores were closed in one location in Onitsha, over 3,000 in Lagos, and another 3,000 in Aba. Together, that's clearly 10,000 possible places where you can get the wrong medication. It's dangerous. Now, what the core of the story that lets me know that it's a good thing is that the Huriwa are saying there is a chain that allows a bad medication come to a person's hand. Let's not forget, we're not really a big manufacturing nation yet.
Right.
So a lot of these things are not necessarily made here. People, first of all, let's get the people who place those orders for the fake medication. But they're now conveyed to Nigeria, and our weakest link is obviously the borders, those people who man the borders. And if those people are letting people come in with bad medication, then truly they need to be identified and punished to the full extent of the law. Don't forget, if you do something like a sting operation and you catch people and you publicize that this person or this group was caught and are being punished because of the sting operation, I think it'll put a very serious dampener on those who want to do it. So I completely support Horiwa. I believe the authorities should set up sting operations and root out the bad eggs, because at the end of the day, if people know that there's a serious consequence for allowing these things passed on their watch, other people will freeze themselves from doing that kind of bad thing. It's very, very dangerous.
It is very, very dangerous. And I mean, looking at the authorities that have been cited in this particular story here, the police, the customs as well. I mean, it is ridiculous to think about. And this particular issue has been so bad for a number of years. In fact, I know for a fact that some of these big manufacturers, they came up with these they would these scratch codes on
On some of
medication
the
for you to
medications,
text the number to
exactly. So
confirm
it's
the
genuine.
it's genuineness.
Yes.
And this particular thing is something that we really, really, really need to be worried about. It's medication. These are things that are supposed to make people better, supposed
Better.
to relieve people of illnesses and all that.
It's not something of choice. When you're ill, you have a need for it, and you ought to know that you're getting the right thing. So kudos for them cracking down. But like the last line of the story said, this will become an annual ritual if you don't stop those loose points of entry.
Mm. You need to cut off the head of the snake
Totally.
at the end of the day.
Totally.
Okay, we'll be keeping our eyes peeled on this one to see if NAFDAC is winning this war, because it is a very tough one to win. Once, as AB said, once all those holes are not plugged, the rats are going to keep coming in. There's really nothing else that you want to do. Okay, from one human rights group to another, we're jumping into the Guardian here. Now, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, that SERAP, has sued the Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, at the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos over its failure to reverse the alleged unlawful, unfair, unreasonable, and unjust, someone is in love with their use, increase in automated
Alliteration.
teller machine transaction fees. Now, if you recall, the CBN announced that ATM withdrawals made at a machine owned by a bank but outside its bank premises would attract a charge of 100 naira per 20,000 naira withdrawn. ATM withdrawals at shopping centers, airports, or standalone cash points would incur a 100 naira fee plus a surcharge of up to 500 naira per 20,000 naira withdrawal. Now, this came out last week in a circular. A lot of people have talked about this, AB, and it just feels like people cannot breathe at this point in time.
You know, it's almost as though the CBN is seeing itself as the largest POS in Nigeria. I'll say this, for a while, in some time past before the POS craze, you could go to an ATM and get a fair amount of money for your needs.
Mm.
And at that time, we weren't pushing towards digital means of payment as much. Now we have a totally different prospect where you go to an ATM, typically the ATMs are not even functional. That's most typical. And then you have people who are in charge now putting more pressure on people who would have at least tried to go to the ATMs of their banks. You're now saying if I don't go to a bank building, even if it's my bank with the same brand
Mm.
somewhere else, I have to pay a surcharge. I do understand that ATMs take operational expenses to run. No one is saying they don't. But let's be fair, the banks are making quite a few billions and trillions. I don't know how much of it, I don't have the figures, but I'd imagine that part of the cost of doing business could be found out of the amount that they get from also other fees that we are paid. Every time you pay, you are charged this, you receive money, you are charged this. So for the CBN to now back them, it's almost as if the CBN says we want to be the biggest, most successful POS operator in Nigeria. I don't think it's a good look. And like the human rights people are saying, this is skewed structurally against some of the lowest people in society who normally would have avoided going to POSs and tried to go and manage what they can get at the ATMs. Now, even they are being surcharged more. But I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is let's ensure that the ATMs are functional. Is there a charge against the bank if I put my ATM card in and I cannot retrieve it and I cannot get money? Typically, once that happens, you have to go and apply for a new ATM card and everything. It's so
Yep.
irritating. So, what is the consequence when banks are actually not operating their ATMs properly? Because one of the reasons why I think POS has become very popular is that at a POS, you have proof of business. If you give your card to a POS operator and it doesn't work, you don't pay anything. You have no, you go away. You just
Right.
simply don't get your money. But at the ATM, you can lose your card, you can waste your time, you can be double, they can say they dispense and they don't dispense. You now have to go and they will tell you the 48 working days. It's ridiculous. So what's the consequence when banks are not operating POSs properly? And can I actually get money there? If I go to my bank's POS and I cannot get money, is there some kind of consequence? It seems as if it's all stacked in favor of the banks and against the people. So that, I guess, is the point of this story. People will pay charges. We do pay charges for all sorts of things, but it seems as if you can't win against the bank's ATM sector.
Right, because it just seems like it's one
Stacked
charge
against you.
after another. So many hidden charges that you pay. The charge for this stamp duty, this one VAT, that, and so on and so forth. But just to add to what you said about when one goes to another bank and uses their card, the card is retained by the ATM. That's it. That card is gone. You are then required to go to your own bank to request for a brand new card. And I mean, these sort of things definitely would not incentivize people to go and
That's what I'm
use
saying.
other bank ATMs, because if I'm going on a road and I use bank A and there's no bank A on that road, I would hold my card till I can find a bank A to use
And
at the end of the
even
day.
even in your bank A, it boggles the mind that if your card is swallowed at your bank A and you enter the banking hall, they will not just open it and give it back to
No, they
you with
won't.
your
You
they
have to
will
get a new
say
card.
that for me, that's a preposterous concept.
CBN regulation, same CBN regulation
Same
at
CBN.
the end
So
of the day.
they're irregular in their regulation in that regard, in my view.
You just wonder sometimes the thought process behind some of these things. Let me just sneak in a message or two here as we get along this morning on Freshly Pressed. This is coming from Sami from Ojudu here. He says, I believe what this country needs is clearly expressed in the presidency movie that just got released in our cinemas. Nigerians should troop out and watch it to see what I mean. Mark my words. Okay, Sami. I see what you did there. I guess bearing that in mind, I will try to give that a watch as well.
What's it called?
The presidency.
I see.
Ajayi Olunilua in Magodo Isheri says the war against fake drugs and other products by NAFDAC is a step in the right direction, as the damage these products are causing to the health of unsuspecting consumers is better imagined.
Totally.
This fight against substandard products takes me back to the years of Dora Akunyili, who fought a very, very good
Valiant
fight,
fight.
really. All right, let's keep things moving on. Let's jump into the Punch newspaper. Let's talk telecoms, as the Association of Telecommunications Companies of Nigeria has raised an urgent alarm over a diesel supply crisis caused by an ongoing strike by petroleum tanker drivers, a branch of the National Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers. Now, ACON President Mr. Tony Mokwere disclosed in a statement cited by the Punch Online on Sunday that the fuel supply disruption is critically affecting telecom-based stations, pushing them to the brink of a shutdown and threatening millions of mobile and internet users in the region. It be as if the quality of service wasn't
Was not already challenging.
that's in itself. Now we're having this issue here, and some issues have been cited in terms of the tanker drivers who are disturbed by security operatives and so on and so forth. This age-old issue. Now they are crying out.
That is the core of the story. And I quote, this strike, which stems from the persistent harassment of tankers and petroleum product drivers by police officers in Lagos State. That is where this is originating from. And so we have a police PRO, we have all sorts of people, we have all sorts of statements about how is the police looking at themselves in the mirror when it is stated, allegedly, that their people are the problem. If tomorrow we cannot send messages, cannot receive email, cannot do WhatsApp because the base stations have shut down, it is stemming from the Nigeria police operatives who are allegedly the ones causing the problem. So here's the issue. Should the police not get busy trying to track down their bad eggs involved with this? Or are we talking about it being an entire situation where the organization approves of police misbehavior, if this story is to be believed? Before the tankers will go on strike, because you see, a tanker driver also earns money from his activity.
Right.
If he says, look, it's better for me not to work than to continue getting this harassment, it's a major indictment on the Nigeria police. And I would hope, believe, and think that the police would, maybe you would say they have no shame, would take this as a major challenge to stop this misbehavior. It happens in too many places. Look, police have a duty, they have to stop sometimes to search, but the harassment we know is a different kind of thing, where you now want to put people in a position where you can extract from them. Again, the best solution against that is have all your documentation. There are two sides to the story.
Right.
Because when you have your documentation, the police ordinarily can disturb you. That's one side. But the police themselves too like to put obstacles in the way of progress. And I think this should be a major wake-up call to all those fantastically dressed top-level policemen in the offices and ACs. Get your boys in order. Stop being a problem to Nigeria and Nigerians. Be part of the solution.
But do you think they will get their boys in order? Because number
I'm
one,
not holding my breath.
number one, as you've mentioned, this is not a strictly Lagos thing. In fact, you can cast your mind to the farmers, those who work in agriculture, when they're bringing goods from the rural areas,
up to
all the
million
taxes.
naira on bribes and extraction.
I mean,
to a typical,
from farm to
exactly to the end user.
market. Now, there's also been talk at different times about those who are even higher up complicit in this particular
That was
thing.
what I alluded to. That
Sending
is
the
it
boys
a
out.
case of the entire organization being fueled by this misbehavior, in which case my holding my breath for them to act would be a waste of time, because they are sitting in their offices in their, those top officers look very good. They are well dressed. They have AC. They are fantastic to behold. But are they ready to make the people below them comply? That's the question.
That is the question. Nigerian police, you need to do better. Sit up and do a whole lot better. Will they do better? Question. No, we're holding our breath. Okay, on to our next story here. We're heading into the nation, back to back to back on Freshly Pressed this morning. Keep your thoughts coming in on WhatsApp on 0809-444-0981. You can also drop a comment on YouTube if you are streaming live. I will take that as well with the WhatsApp messages. But like I mentioned, heading into the nation. Now, according to Minister of Works, Dave Umah, he was speaking in Lagos yesterday. Now, he said the Northeast is not left out of President Bola Tinubu's administration's legacy projects. Now, partly funded by the China Exim Bank, the minister said that the fourth legacy project of the administration stretched from Akwanga to Jos, Bauchi, and Gombe. Now, he gave this assurance during a stakeholder engagement on the phase 1 and phase 2 of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway project, giving updates there. But Maybe what I actually want to get your thoughts on is this whole thing about legacy projects. Yes, legacy projects are fine. You look back on them. People look back on them and say, "Oh, this person did this thing," and so while he was in office. Now the big question is, should we be having legacy projects for the sake of legacy, or for the fact that they are functional and they will benefit the people for generations to come? Shouldn't that be the crux of the matter?
You ask a very poignant question. The truth of the matter is, in some cases, I see ego at it, because for me, very specifically, this Lagos Calabar road is a duplication of the East-West road, and the East-West road is a mess. In many portions, it's almost impassable. I have been on this show saying, giving credit to the current administration as trying to actually solve some of the existing problems on that road. They are not just awarding contracts, they're trying to solve the problem of perennial flooding that goes on and all that, and kudos to them. But in that wise, it was totally unnecessary, in my view, to create a road that literally parallels that route from Lagos to Calabar. There is an east-west road. There are portions of that road that are a death trap. There's a portion of that road in Port Harcourt and Eleme that a fire happened because the road was so bad, a tanker fell over and tens or hundreds of people died. Millions of naira in vehicles and all that were lost. So this particular project, in my view, I have questions about its propriety, the timing, and the utility of that project. There are many other ways to have invested X amount of money to improve the legacy. You need to connect, in my view, every state capital in Nigeria by rail. You need to connect from Lagos to Maiduguri by high speed rail. You need to connect from Calabar to Sokoto by high speed rail. There's some corridors you can create, and then you have feeders to other places. Those are the kind of legacies you can do over the course of 8, 16, 24 years. But building that road, in my view, I'll just say this out. Once that road reaches the refinery in Lagos, it's stopping. Let's watch and see.
Let's watch and see. Okay, before we leave this, how about the Northeast feeling
Left
left
out.
out of what is going on?
Well, according to David Moore, he said no, that's not the case because there's this road that's supposed to be a three. The president had said he wants it to be a three-lane road either side, but the bank, the China company,
Exim Bank.
Exim Bank, are not necessarily that enthused about doing that. At the end of the day, if we say we want a certain size of road, we should take the maybe the funding we're getting for China Exim Bank and put some of our own funding in. We should take the money from that at 21 billion naira house in Abuja and put it into the road and get the road we want. We cannot be totally dependent on outsiders and then giving them the specification of what we want. We too need to put some skin in the game.
We need to put some skin in the game. Oluwaseyi on WhatsApp says, as far as I'm concerned, the willful manufacturing, importation, and selling of fake drugs is one of the most evil crimes anyone can commit. If I have my way, their trials will be expedited and concluded within a week, after which they will be executed.
Oh, thank God, that's what he said.
Like,
That's what I feel.
like, how can you decide to make money out of something like
People
that?
suffering.
The heart of man, Oluwaseyi, the heart of man. Tony from the Lagos Metropolis says, good to have AB live in the studio. I second that motion. Can you guys or anyone in the wider world tell me how successful SERAP has been on any of their lawsuits, ultimatums, demands, and so on and so forth? I think they're just one big running joke at this point. I disagree. I mean, probably hear about the end game at the end
The
of the day.
follow up.
The follow-ups, yes, but SERAP actually does stay on the mandate. Now, the question of how many successful cases they actually have, it's up for debate. But one very important thing that I will say is that SERAP does not take their foot off the necks that need to be pressed.
And
Forgive that expression.
Sometimes you need a body like that to raise issues that might otherwise go underneath the radar. So don't knock it just because it's not very public, but they keep some of these very, very important things uppermost in the concerns of everybody.
Most definitely. Dami from Ikeja says, why is policy making so confused and disjointed from reality? CBN keeps talking about banking the unbanked, and yet they want to tax the living daylight out of those who do put their money in the bank. It was the deliberate failure of the CBN to maintain sufficient cash volumes in the economy that drove the need for POS cash agents. Now, the same CBN, without resolving the cash flow problem through the bank ATMs, is trying to force them out of business by jacking up their charges. Niger, we hail thee. Joshua says the high officers receive their share. That's why they can't do anything. I mean,
as I said, this is the impression I have, but unproven thus far.
We, the conspiracy theorists, will continue to theorize at the end of the day. Okay, let's talk about health. This one is very important. We need to bring this to the consciousness of the good people. This is coming from the Premium Times. Now, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, NCDC, has reported 80 deaths from 413 confirmed Lassa fever cases across 11 states during the epidemiological week 6, that's 3rd to 9th of February. Now, the NCDC disclosed this information on its official website, noting that the case fatality rate had risen to 19.4%, up from 17.5% in the same period in 2024. We are not out of the woods, people. Lassa fever is still a very, very big deal.
19.4, literally 20%. 1 out of 5 people are affected up to the point of death. That is a very serious thing. And don't forget, those are the ones that are reported as having died. Others are still ill. They could die or they could be seriously hurt by this. Lassa fever, from what is reported, is something that happens when affected rodents maybe cross over food. You know how our food production in Nigeria is most interesting. Some of it is out in the open just because of the facilities we have. And then we don't protect them. So first of all, the message has to go out of how we have to be more protective. They're saying don't do bush burning, it makes rats running. That's another part of the story. It's really a matter of sanitation.
Mm.
And sanitation could be much enhanced if we planned our living environments better, so that you have the greenery where it ought to be and you have the humans where they ought to be. The two don't have to necessarily meet. So they have things like put netting on your windows, don't let rodents come in and all that. There, it's highly preventable. So it's very alarming that the death rate is inching upwards.
Right.
We really need to break it down, and that's where you know environmental concerns, medical concerns, help, and access to healthcare all have to play a role together. But we can't afford to lose 1 in 5 people who are affected by Lassa fever. And God forbid it even rises the amount of our number of people affected. So, individually, in our collective areas of living and responsibility, let's take better care to make sure that the conditions are better. And then some people who may not be within the sound of our voices in our villages, there have to be outreach. That is what the
Mm.
local government level ought to be doing. You
Right.
know, you cannot expect President Bola Tinubu, just fresh from Ethiopia, to come and tell people in the village. So let our local government health officials go and do that kind of. That's why you have that local government. And our local governments, on average, get nearly 1 billion naira a month, plus or minus. So it can't be for lack of what it takes to get those health officials
Mm.
into an environment. Now, again, you see why the local government is so important.
Indeed.
Talking of which,
Talking. I saw you did it. Now that was an amazing layup. Maybe you've played basketball before. There's nothing you can tell me. That was an amazing layup because we need was really quickly, just very
yes,
quickly.
very
We need
quickly.
to talk about local government issues. We're heading to, of course, Osun State, where the PDP has described the successful conduct of Saturday's local government election in Osun State as a triumph of democracy, the rule of law, and the principle of true federalism. I won't go too deep into the details. 30 local governments won, 332 councillors. There's a clean sweep, and then there's what happened in Osun State, the LG polls.
So, just very quickly, we know that there's been some legal back and forth going
Mm,
on in Osun State, and there have actually been some physical clashes where people have died.
that is true.
That is a tinderbox. We do not need any stress further. We need that situation to be properly looked into from the legal front, from a security perspective, and all that. But that, being as it may, doesn't remove the fact that the local government is the one spot where you can touch the people where they are. So Osun State being set aside, I think this is going to go to the courts. Whatever it is, where they are right now, they are old people, old local government people,
Mm,
supposedly new ones. They're going to have to meet and sort this all out in court. I can't speak to that. But the local government, again, is where you get ordinary people to feel and understand the dangers of Lassa fever and other things and so forth. So, in Oshun, let's all sit down outside the courts and wait for the breaking news on this story.
Well, what I will say is that I mean the template is going it's cutting across board. We've seen this particular game play out in different states where the ruling party conduct local government elections and then clean sweep of every available seat. Now, this has happened in Osun State
One more time.
as well. One more time. Nigeria is such an interesting place to be in. All right, let me take messages as we round up this morning. Gilbert Musa in Festac says, on the coastal road from Lagos to Calabar, Mr. AB has said it all. Rail transportation started in Ebute Metta in Lagos in 1898. 1898. 18, no.
Not
18.
1998.
Okay. Lack of continuity in the development of rail transport in the 1970s, 1980s till date contributed significantly to our current state of poor road network nationwide today. Man, we've wasted so
1898. Thank you
much
for
time.
that trivia piece. sir.
Okay, Solomon from Akoka, who's currently in the UK, says, I wonder what Kemi what Kemi Badenoch will say about that Nigeria police story. Now we did do ourselves. Dio for Daniel Lagos says the evil that men does lives after them. IBB's confession now is medicine after death. 32 years later, we're not talking about IBB this morning, Dio, but thank you for your message. Who else is talking to us here? Manny from Ikeja says it's not only the police that tax the tanker drivers, but all the members of the armed forces, local government task force forces at the so-called border states and those regular area boys on those routes the tankers use. Thank you for adding that,
I agree. So the
Manny.
police should be the one to stop the rest of the people.
Ideally. Fabian from Ekwe says, a while back, the IG set the standard by arresting policemen who set up illegal checkpoints. There were numbers to call and so on, but that has become a thing of the past. One should indeed have their complete papers, but even with that, one can still be stopped and harassed.
I agree. I
I'm still
completely have
waiting.
experienced it.
I'm still waiting for the recall of the police assigned to private persons to happen. You might wait for quite a while there, Fabian. And Cisco says misplacement of priorities. And finally, Tony in Marine Beach says, I once had an argument with them in a bank when my card was seized. I told them they can even confirm I'm the owner because I have an account with them on the same title. They said they can't return it. Simple reason. CBN policy, as we said.
I mean,
And then I asked the rationale behind that
policy.
policy, but no answer. I ended up telling them the CBN governor who brought that policy is under prosecution. Incidentally, it's always draconian policies coming from the government and especially the present one. I wondered when Pharaoh will let Nigerians go. Indeed,
not just draconian, but senseless. When you have my picture in your records, it's my card, it's my name, it's my bank. I just don't see why you cannot give it back to me. Somebody needs to educate me. It's a preposterous policy.
Indeed. Anyways, AB, it's been quite the ride this morning. Thank you so much for being here in person. Absolute pleasure having you in the studio.
Thank you. The pleasure and privilege have been mine. Great to meet you in person, and let's make it a money-making Monday.
Indeed. Oh, Chioma on YouTube says, welcome, Omoeko. Baby. Yes, good to have you live without any gremlins getting into the system.
Before the base stations go down, at least, let me be here in person.
All right, time to call it the morning on Freshly Pressed. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for all the messages. Do keep it tuned to the Smooth Breakfast at 8:15. You know how we do on a Monday. It'll be time to walk into the locker room and talk about sports. Great sporting action from the weekend. You don't want to miss it.
The stories.
That's how we do.
It's good to see you in action, in person.